Have you ever looked in a mirror and for a brief, strange moment, you didn't recognize the person looking back at you, not in a scary way, but in a profoundly curious one? Who is that, really, beneath the name, the history, the collection of habits and preferences you call a personality? Where does that person begin, and where do they end? We hold on to this idea of a self, a core, an unchanging essence that is uniquely us. We think of it as a solid thing, a little statue of our soul that we carry inside our chests. But what if it's not a statue at all? What if it's more like a reflection in water, constantly shifting, changing with the light, with the wind, with the angle from which it's viewed? Now here is a thought that might feel strange at first, a thought that might even feel like a threat. But I want you to stay with it. You don't exist without me, and I don't exist without you. This isn't a riddle, and it isn't a claim of godhood. It is perhaps the most fundamental, overlooked truth of our existence, and understanding it, truly feeling it, is the key that unlocks a profound and radical kind of freedom. Let's unpack this. You think you are you because of your memories, right? That time you skinned your knee as a child, your first love, the taste of your grandmother's cooking. But a memory is a ghost, unless it is shared, or at least imagined to be shared. Who was there when you skinned your knee? Was it your mother who cleaned the wound, whose eyes, full of concern, reflected back to you a version of yourself as someone precious, someone worth protecting? In that moment, her perception of you became a part of you. It was woven into the fabric of that memory. That feeling of being cared for is now a brick in the cathedral of who you are. Think of your first love. You remember their face, their laugh. But what you truly remember is the person you became in their presence, the version of you that was reflected in their adoring gaze. You were wittier, you were more daring, you were more beautiful than you had ever felt before. Did you suddenly become witty and beautiful, or did their perception, their mirror, simply show you a reflection you hadn't seen before? A reflection you then decided to inhabit. You became that person for them, and in doing so, you became that person for yourself. Every interaction is a form of creation. When you walk into a job interview, a new you is born. This you is professional, articulate, a carefully curated collection of your best qualities. The interviewer's gaze is a spotlight, and you perform the role of the ideal candidate. You exist in that moment as a function of their expectation. Then you leave. You meet your best friend for a drink, and that professional you dissolves instantly. A new you appears, one that is relaxed, that uses slang, that tells embarrassing stories. You are reflected in your friend's eyes as someone known, someone accepted, flaws and all. So, which one is the real you, the professional or the friend? The answer is both. And neither. The real you is not a static entity. It is the dynamic, fluid potential to be all of these things, a potential that is only ever actualized, only ever made real, in the presence of another. There's a concept in sociology called the looking glass self. It was proposed by a man named Charles Horton Cooley over a century ago, and it's a beautifully simple way to understand this. He said our sense of self is built in 3 steps. First, we imagine how we appear to other people. We imagine what they see when they look at us. Second, we imagine their judgment of that appearance. Do they think we are smart, funny, awkward, boring. And third, we experience a feeling based on that perceived judgment, pride, happiness, shame, embarrassment. Think about it. You don't just feel pride in a vacuum. You feel pride because you imagine someone else's admiration. You don't just feel shame alone. You feel shame because you imagine someone else's disappointment or disgust. We are constantly, subconsciously, living in this hall of mirrors. Every person we meet holds up a new mirror, reflecting a slightly different angle, a different version of us. And we collect these reflections. We stitch them together and call it a personality. We call it me. But it is a quilt, sewn from the threads of 1,000 different perceptions. This is why validation feels so good, and why rejection hurts so much. It's not just an opinion. It feels like an attack on our very existence. Because, in a way, it is. When someone rejects you, their mirror is essentially saying, the version of you that I see is not one I want to exist. And that can feel like a small death, a tiny erasure of being. But this is where the freedom comes in. Because if yourself is not a solid, unchanging statue, if it is a fluid, co-created dance, then it cannot be permanently broken. It cannot be definitively defined by any single mirror. If you don't like the reflection you see in one person's eyes, you have the power to turn away. You have the power to seek out other mirrors, mirrors that reflect the qualities you wish to cultivate, the versions of yourself you wish to bring into being. You are not a noun. You are a verb. You are not a thing. You are a happening, an event that occurs at the intersection of gazes, a story that is being co-written every single moment of every single day. The person you were 10 years ago doesn't exist anymore. Not really. They exist only as a collection of memories held in your mind and in the minds of others. A series of reflections from past mirrors, and the person you will be in 10 years is not yet born. They are waiting to be created, waiting to be called into existence by the people you will meet, the experiences you will share, and the reflections you will choose to inhabit. So when I say you don't exist without me, I am also saying I don't exist without you. You are my mirror right now. As you listen to these words, you are creating a version of me in your mind, the thoughtful guide, the philosophical voice, and in doing so, you are allowing that version of me to come into being. It is a shared act of creation, a silent agreement to believe in each other just for a moment. This interdependence isn't a weakness. It is the very fabric of reality. It is the source of all connection, all empathy, all love. It is the recognition that the space between us is not empty. It is where we are both born, over and over and over again. So the question isn't, who am I? Perhaps the real question is, who are we together right now? And what reflection will we choose to show each other in the next moment and the next? This recognition, this understanding that the self is relational, it changes everything, especially how we think about loneliness. We tend to think of loneliness as a lack of people, an empty room, a silent phone. But true loneliness, the kind that hollows you out, is not the absence of bodies. It's the absence of mirrors. It's the terrifying feeling that no one is truly seeing you, that you are not being reflected back at yourself. You can be in a crowded room, at a party full of laughter and conversation, and feel utterly, devastatingly alone because the mirrors around you are blank, or they are reflecting a version of you that feels false, a mask that you're tired of wearing. You are performing a self that isn't you, and the perceived judgment in their eyes, even if it's positive, feels empty because they are applauding a character, not a person. This is the exhaustion of modern life for so many of us. We are constantly curating our reflections for the digital looking glass of social media, a hall of mirrors more vast and more distorting than any that has existed before. We post a picture, and then we wait. We imagine the appearance. We imagine the judgment. And we crave the feeling of validation that comes from the likes, the comments, the shares. Each notification is a tiny whisper from the mirror saying, "I see you, and what I see is good." But it's a fragile existence, isn't it? Because the judgment can also be negative, a cruel comment, or worse, silence, the utter void of no reflection at all, and our self-worth rises and falls with this digital tide. We have outsourced the construction of our identity to an algorithm and to the fleeting opinions of strangers. But the antidote to this loneliness isn't more followers. It's more authentic mirrors. It's finding those one or two people in whose presence you don't have to perform, where you can put down the mask. And the reflection you see back is not of a carefully constructed image, but of something more real, more vulnerable, more whole. This is what true intimacy is. It is the silent agreement to be a kind and honest mirror for each other, a mirror that reflects not just the light, but also the shadows, and to hold that reflection with acceptance, with love. This is also why loss is so painful. When we lose someone we love, a parent, a partner, a deep friend, we don't just lose them. We lose the version of ourselves that existed only in their eyes. We lose a part of our own identity. Who are you when you are no longer a son or a daughter to that specific parent? Their unique reflection of you is gone from the world forever. A whole universe of shared memories, inside jokes, and silent understandings that helped define you has vanished. The grief is not just for the person who is gone. It is also for the self that is gone. And the healing process is the slow, painful work of finding new mirrors.